Some stories don't begin with a mystery. They begin with a woman who loved her children, who dressed for the day even when no one was watching, who laughed loudly and who lived fully, until the world around her began to dim. On a quiet June morning in 2017, a postal worker in Horn Lake, Mississippi, walked past a small, waist-high mailbox, the kind you barely notice on the side of the road. But what he saw that day would stay with him forever. A woman kneeling, shoelaces looped around her neck, her purse resting neatly in her lap, her hair tangled in the knots that held her in place. Her name was Jessica Renee Johnson, a mother, a daughter, a friend. And according to the official record, she had taken her own life. But nothing about the scene made sense. Not to her family, not to the experts, not to anyone who knew Jessica. And the deeper you look, the more the truth slips into the shadows, replaced by missing evidence, conflicting stories, and a death scene that feels more staged than real. Tonight, we're stepping into the space between what was written and what actually happened. Jessica Renee Johnson was born in 1979 to Linda Appleton and David Johnson. She was the kind of woman who never blended into the background, always dressed for the occasion, always put together, always glowing with energy. She was outgoing, fun, magnetic, and above all else, she was a mother who loved her two children fiercely. She raised them on her own, without child support, and she did it with pride. Her kids were her world, the reason she kept going, even when life got heavy. In 2017, she moved back in with her parents. They were her safety net, her support system. But around this time, Jessica's circle began to shift. She started spending time with people who didn't have her best interests at heart. And her romantic relationships, once chosen with care, took a darker turn. Her last two boyfriends were described as controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. One of them, Garland Hart, was the man she kept going back to, even when she knew she shouldn't. Jessica once told her family, "This guy is going to kill me." And she wasn't being dramatic. She was being honest. On May 31st, Jessica left her parents' home to visit Hart. Their relationship was volatile, the kind where the bad outweighed the good by a landslide. The next day, June 1st, Jessica called a friend in hysterics. She said she was locked in a bathroom, she was terrified, she needed help. Her friends drove to the house, but after waiting 35 minutes, she left without Jessica. Jessica also FaceTimed her mother that day. She said she was coming home soon. That was the last time her mother ever saw her alive. After 6 p.m., everyone inside the house claimed Jessica simply vanished. Less than 24 hours later, she was found dead, tied to a mailbox less than 5 miles from home. Jessica was found kneeling, not hanging. Her shoelaces were tied around her neck, fastened to the mailbox. Her purse sat neatly in her lap, with her hand resting on it. She had no makeup on, which was deeply out of character for her. Her hair was tangled in the shoelaces, and the position of her body didn't match the mechanics of suicide by asphyxiation. Yet the preliminary ruling was suicide. Her family didn't believe it for a second. Not because of denial, but because the scene itself didn't make sense. Jessica loved life, she loved her kids, she wasn't depressed, and if she had ever chosen to end her life, her family believes she would have done it quietly, not in a public, painful, and physically improbable way. Forensic scientist Dr. Maurice Godwin reviewed the case, and his conclusions were blunt. The position of the shoelaces could not have cut off Jessica's air supply. The pressure point was on her cheekbone, not her throat. It would have been excruciating and impossible to endure long enough to lose consciousness. Also noted, Jessica's hair was tangled in the knots. Her purse was neatly placed in her lap. Her hand rested on top of it. There was no defensive marks on her neck. The shoelaces should have left a deep, obvious groove. They didn't. Former Memphis police officer Rome Moreno agreed. He said the knot was too precise to tie in the dark. The mailbox wouldn't have supported the force of a struggle, and there were low-hanging tree limbs nearby, far more logical for a suicide. Both experts believe the scene was staged. If Jessica's death was staged, the investigation should have uncovered it. But instead, the investigation raised even more questions. Police parked too close to the scene and trampled potential evidence. They didn't interview nearby witnesses. They never secured or reviewed the surveillance footage from the house where Jessica was last seen, and the homeowner kept changing the story about what happened to it. Evidence was returned to the family immediately instead of being preserved. Jessica's shoes had possible blood splatter. Her purse strap was broken. Her clothes were sent to the funeral home and burned. Her shoelaces, the alleged murder weapon, were lost. Her necklace disappeared while in police custody. Jessica's family later learned that despite the death certificate saying no autopsy, a partial autopsy had been done. It revealed meth and Xanax in her system, which some believed was used to justify closing the case quickly. But the biggest red flag? Jessica's phone. Jessica's phone was locked, and the only person who knew the passcode was Garland Hart. He refused to give it to the family. At 3:29 a.m., either moments before or moments after Jessica died, a text was sent from her phone to her 19-year-old son. What it said has never been publicly released. Hart denies involvement. His girlfriend claims he was with her that night, despite having a warrant out for domestic violence against her. Even Hart and his friend admit they don't believe Jessica would have taken her own life. There are too many unanswered questions, too many inconsistencies, too many pieces of evidence that vanished, burned, or were never collected. Jessica's death scene does not match known suicide mechanics. Her injuries don't match the method. Her position doesn't match the outcome. Her life doesn't match the narrative. And her voice, the one that said, "This guy is going to kill me," was never taken seriously. Jessica Johnson left behind 2 children who deserve answers, a mother who deserved truth, a family who deserved justice. Instead, they were given a story that doesn't fit the evidence, and a case that was closed before it was ever truly opened. If you have any information, no matter how small, you can email Jessica's mother at johnsonlinda536@gmail.com. I'll leave you with this. Some stories stay in the dark because someone wants them there, but shadows don't last forever, and the truth has a way of haunting the people who try to bury it. Justice has not been served, not yet, but Jessica's story isn't going away, not as long as we keep telling it.